What up, world? It's your boy E letting you know we are now proud members of the Visionaries Global Media family. That's right, catch us Wednesdays on Visionaries Global Media.
Welcome to Visionaries Global Media, your number one source for podcasting entertainment. Visionaries Global Media, envisioning excellence on a global scale.
What up, world? It's your boy E coming at you from the Nattering With E studios, letting you know that we are now proud members of the Visionaries Global Media family. Catch us Wednesdays and sometimes some other random days. And check out some of the other shows too. Band from Ringside, led by Jason B. Good Cop, Bad Cop with Graham, Matt, and Ryan. And our favorite pod, ROH Revelry with Will and High Five Tom every Saturday. What up, High Fivers? It's your boy Eric Freeds telling you to tune in to ROH Revelry with Tom and Will every Saturday. This week's episode of Nattering With E is brought to you by Century Gloves, your world leader in martial arts. Need gloves made for speed bag, heavy bag, and fitness training? Century Gloves has been helping people like you and I get into shape since 1976. With genuine leather for maximum durability, finger-specific dexterity, and curved cushioning to reduce hand fatigue, Century Gloves will help provide you with the pound-shedding workout you've always dreamed of. Stickers, get your stickers. That's right, folks. Nattering With E now has stickers of the Nattering With E logo, and soon we will have some other exciting and fun stuff for everybody to have. Thanks again for listening to us as always, and get your stickers. DM us on the Nattering With E Instagram page or E_Freeds' Twitter page. This is Nattering With E at the movies.
Hey Toronto, we're grabbing a beer with Jody Threat. You want to come? You know that WWE is coming into town for Money in the Bank, so Love Wrestling is coming for Money in the Drank Pub Crawl. Hop on the bus with us as we grab drinks from several establishments, party with Jody Threat and the Love Wrestling team, and get dropped off at Scotiabank Arena in time for WWE Money in the Bank. Love Wrestling's Money in the Drank Pub Crawl takes place on Saturday, July 6th. For tickets and info, visit tixr.com/Love Wrestling.
This is Nattering With E at the movies. What up, world? It's your boy E coming at you from the Nattering With E studios, presenting you with another episode of Nattering With E at the movies. So before we get started on this week's movie series, as opposed to movie, I would like to say a couple of things. One, shout outs to our guys at Visionary Global Media. Chad and Diesel have really helped us with promoting the pod. Well, I'm not sure where we'd be without them, but it's motivated me to keep trying to come up with new episodes of the podcast. This episode is actually going to be recorded as the 60th episode since I started back up with this back in April of 2023. So I just want to say thank you to everybody who's ever come on the pod, whoever listened, and yeah, it should be great. Doing today's episode, I'm looking really forward to it, as it's something that I've really wanted to do for a long time, is this series. Another thing is that I've decided via consulting with the man, the myth, the legend, High Five Tom, that some of the reviews that I've been doing for him, I'm actually going to pop on the Nattering With E podcast network. So they'll be under the Nattering With E banner, but it'll be called like Yenta of Wrestling instead of Yenta's plural. We'll still have Yenta's plural when Yentas of Wrestling with Yenta's plural when Jordan is free. But I think Yao is the way to go for when I'm talking about wrestling. And the plan for this is essentially to put over the Ontario and really Canadian independent scene, bring attention to wrestlers I think everybody should keep their eyes on, and also some like East Coast US wrestling promotions as well. Like there's a promotion called Action Wrestling where it's basically NWA Wildside or Anarchy, but like the 2024 version. And they just put out banger after banger after banger. There's a match from, I think it was Action Dean a couple weeks ago, maybe a month or two ago. Ali, the former Mustafa Ali from WWE, he's now the X Division champion in TNA, and he wrestled. Love Doug from Beyond Wrestling's tag team partner in the Love Doctors, Dr. Landon Hale, for the X Division title. Go out of your way to watch that. Also, one called Manders wrestled Alex Kane for the World Heavyweight title in that, and to open the show of all things. So you just knew that the entire show was going to be awesome. And the man, the psycho himself, Cruel, aka Mads Kruger in MLW, wrestled Adam Priest, who a lot of people are saying it might be as good as AJ Styles was when he was first coming onto the scene. Although he's much older than when AJ Styles started. I think AJ Styles started at like 20, and Adam Priest has been in the wrestling industry for a few years now. He's 29, and honestly, I think he's the next big guy to get signed because he's phenomenal. Great wrestler. So as it relates to what we're watching today, did you know that Spider-Man is one of my top three favorite superheroes? The other two being the Incredible Hulk and Captain America. Also, like Batman would round that up too. And when I went to Comic-Con last couple weekends ago, I picked up the series for Shang-Chi, so I'm looking forward to going through those and checking out how good of a superhero Shang-Chi is, because the Disney version of his show was excellent. Um, but yeah, we're going to be talking about Spider-Man. So today the goal is a little crazy in that, like a pub crawl called Money in the Drink by our guys at Love Wrestling. That's set for July 6th with the Wild Child Jody Threat. My wild adventure is trying to determine who the best Spider-Man is in the last 20 years. Was it Tobey McGuire from 2002 to 2007? Andrew Garfield from 2012 to 2016? Or is it the current live action reigning Spider-Man, Tom Holland, who's been in the lead role as Peter Parker since 2017? Um, One thing I should state, which I just went through a couple of takes of doing the pod, but I think this is the version that we'll be going with, is that Andrew Garfield didn't like him as Spider-Man. Like he saying he just didn't do it for me is the wrong approach, because there's things in Spider-Man that I was looking for in terms of who I wanted, um basically how I, as a fan of Spider-Man since I was a kid, how I wanted Spider-Man to be. I felt in that regard like like Tobey Maguire basically captivated that. And I think the reason for that is because um when his movies came out, I was like starting high school, and then I was midway through university when he finished. Um Andrew Garfield was in a time in my life where I wasn't really it wasn't that I wasn't into Spider-Man anymore. It was just that I like wasn't as I was fighting I was fighting the notion of being a nerd, and so watching Amazing Spider-Man felt like sort of a slap in. I don't want to call it a slap in the face because that's pretty harsh, but it felt like very different because Andrew Garfield was in, if you recall, he's been in a couple other major things. The Social Network, he played Mark Zuckerberg's partner before Mark Zuckerberg took over and became um, the Facebook guy. And he also played um, one of the main character, sorry, in Hacksaw Ridge. So then to see him do uh, Spider-Man was like completely was like night and day from the Social Network if we're looking at the timeline, because Social Network came out in 2010, then um, Amazing Spider-Man 2012 and 2014. So 2012, Andrew Garfield wasn't really a fan of him. Um, the other thing too is, and I'm sure this is a bias, but like he comes off as one of these people who's sort of like uh I don't know how to phrase it properly, but essentially what I'm trying to say is that he comes off as someone who like I just wouldn't wouldn't associate Peter Parker with. Like Tobey Maguire and Tom Holland, I can kind of like Tobey Maguire for sure. I can see as Spider-Man because like he played the nerd in a lot of things, and he's always in that sort of nerdy role. You never think of him as a cool guy, even in Spider-Man 3 when he uh, gets taken over by that black ooze stuff that turns him into like emo Spider-Man, where he's always emotional and he looks like he could play in like Silverstein. Um, Tom Holland, he plays like the modern, like the Gen Z everyday kid who's just like he's not a nerd, but he's not a cool guy either. And he's got a really cool best friend who's like totally they in the newer Spider-Mans, like Far From Home, Homecoming, No Way Home, and so forth, they really went out of the way to make sure that Ned played a major part in the series. Similar to me, that was sort of like a throwback. While Ned doesn't become Harry Osborn, aka New Green Goblin, it really played to the idea that Peter was more than just this nerd who was oohing and awing over the uh, hottest girl in the school. So in the Andrew Garfield versions of the Amazing Spider-Man, it comes off like if if he's not with Gwen Stacy, aka Emma Stone, aka Gwen Stacy, he's like hanging out in his room and like he's just trying to figure out formulas and he's staying away from everybody. So it just seems, I don't know. I think he would have been better as a villain, personally. I didn't like him at all as Spider-Man. He sort of dragged down a little bit too. I mean, I love the fact that Sally Field played May in those two movies, but and randomly Martin Sheen was Ben, which I thought was interesting because he played a decent Ben. I thought the guy who played Ben in the Tobey Maguire series, Cliff Robertson, was an excellent Ben. Also, Rosemary Harris as May throughout the original Spider-Man series was fantastic, and Kirsten Dunst, like, let's just say that he, no, sorry, let's just say that she was like my dream woman back when I was in high school. I was like, oh my God, Mary Jane, MJ. If MJ could be a real person, Kirsten Dunst is who I would see MJ as. Like that scene where Spider-Man is hanging upside down and she gives him a kiss in the rain is iconic. Like they tried to play that off again in the third movie when Spider-Man after he's absorbed by that ooze stuff, turns into a real jerk, emo guy, and he gets kissed by Gwen Stacy. But like when you think of Spider-Man, you think of MJ. You don't think of Spider-Man and Gwen Stacy. I'm sorry, that's just the way that I feel about this whole thing. Each of those movies also did very, very well at the box office. Um, the thing though about that is that I kind of put an asterisk towards Spider-Man doing well at the box office. And now what I mean by now you might think, what? What the hell does that mean? Essentially what it means to me is that the Sam Raimi led Spider-Man trilogy with Tobey McGuire was like separate from the Marvel universe. And Tom Holland's version was after uh Marvel acquired the rights from Sony and basically integrated him into the Avengers storylines. So you knew like the Tom Holland version sort of couldn't fail, if that makes any sense, because he's literally being mentored by Iron Man and uh and Captain America and so forth. And like he's still trying to find himself, don't get me wrong, but like he's got people who has his back. Whereas in the Tobey Maguire versions, it starts out that like Peter has Harry, and eventually Mary Jane, but then for a long time it's just him because he's trying to keep it away from Harry and from MJ because he wants to protect them, and he is just like there's parts of that movie where he play where he's against Green Goblin, and more specifically when it's Sandman and Venom, where you're just like, oh my God, he needs a sidekick. Like, this is ridiculous how many times he's getting beat up. Even when he gets the ooze put on him and he's the fully black costume of Spider-Man, you're still like, oh man, he needs help. And eventually Harry comes to the realization that even though he's fighting this I'll never be the Green Goblin, I'll never be my dad storyline, he also realizes, like Peter is my best friend. Like some sort of uh this isn't some sort of like vendetta against him. It's totally against Spider-Man. But at the same time, like my dad was a psycho. So he has his own demons too. I thought the storytelling in the Sam Raimi led version of Spider-Man was quite good. In in The Amazing Spider-Man, I didn't really think he was that amazing, to be honest with you. The movie's kind of I thought the first one was kind of slow to build up. And when he literally goes to Oscorp and pretends to be one of the interns at Oscorp so that he can talk to who we eventually find out is the lizard monster about his parents, he it's kind of predictable that he's going to get bit by a spider. Not because like I'm a diehard fan or anything, but if you look at like how that scene plays out, you just know he's the one who's going to go wander off and go figure out who's basically going to be gonna get bit by the spider and get the um powers. The thing too that was weird about that was that instead of playing off the fact that he got bit by a spider, he makes it so obvious that something's wrong. Like um his heads are sticking to people. The scene on the subway where he accidentally rips the lady's shirt off, and then all the thugs try to fight him, but he inadvertently defends himself because his hand gets stuck to a subway pole is quite funny. But besides that, I mean, I don't know. It was okay for Andrew Garfield. I'd cross him off the list. So that takes us down to who would be the best Spider-Man between Tobey Maguire and Tom Holland. To me, I think I've already said enough about how good um, Tobey Maguire was in these movies. He really showed the thing that I appreciated in the first Spider-Man was when he's fully a nerd and he's getting bullied by Flash Thompson, which is the main bully in all of the series. And what I like about his version of Spider-Man is that when he gets bit by the spider, he takes like a long ass nap. Who hasn't taken a long nap? And he wakes up and he thinks to himself, like, did I get bit by a spider or what the heck happened? And then he looks in the mirror and he's got muscles and he's like toned and like he figures, oh my God, something must have happened to me that like now I have these superpowers and it's amazing. Whereas with Tom Holland, once he got bit and figured out how to become Spider-Man, I mean, it wasn't long until the Avengers were like, hey, we know this guy and we'll take him under our wing. So that sort of detracted for him. Um, I mentioned earlier about how uh, wrestling plays into the Spider-Man series. And for that reason, I would like to point to one of the scenes, actually, the scene that really brings everything together in the series is Spider-Man's acting out because Peter's acting out in Spider-Man 1 because he's not familiar with his feelings for um Mary Jane. He sees Harry is also into Mary Jane. Um, and then he also has these new powers and he doesn't know how to act. And so he gets in this fight with Uncle Ben, who basically is like a adoptive father to him, same as May is his adoptive mother, because we don't know what happened to his parents in this series. And so to try and get his own money because he's sick of being under their rule, he he decides that he is going to join like an illegal wrestling ring, an illegal wrestling promotion. And so Bruce Campbell, who was in all three movies playing various roles, it was quite hilarious to see him go from like being in the first um Spider-Man as the ring announcer and then becoming uh the waiter and the host and the host of the restaurant, and then also the usher who won't let Spider-Man in while he's talking to when he wants to go see Mary Jane's play was quite funny. Um anyway, so essentially what happens is that because Peter wants his own money so he can buy a car so that he can impress Mary Jane and she'll leave Flash for him, is he joins this wrestling promotion where you have to last up to 3 minutes with Bonesaw McGraw, played by former professional wrestler and one of my favorites, the Macho Man, Randy Savage. What's interesting is that so Spider-Man's able to defeat him because he has these new powers where he can like jump all over the place and um Bonesaw inadvertently knocks himself out. And so what ends up happening is that the wrestling promoter screws him out of the money, which unfortunately in professional wrestling, especially on the indies, that seemed to be a common theme during the mid 2000s. If you look at various promotions that went under, that was one of the big things was that like wrestlers were not getting paid and thus it wasn't or being paid properly. So the wrestling promoter decides to rip off Peter Parker. Peter Parker then sees a guy come in and rob the promoter. The promoter says, "Hey, aren't you going to help me and like help me keep my money?" And Peter Parker's like, not my problem. The same way you said it wasn't your problem when you wouldn't pay me my full $300. Anyways, after he lets that guy go, it turns out that that guy went off and killed Uncle Ben trying to steal his car. So like it sets everything in motion. That like just being a good person and the moral of the story being like Spider-Man always trying to get back to being just a good person um really plays out in the trilogy. Um the other thing that I liked about Tobey Maguire's version of Peter Parker slash Spider-Man was that only the first movie he was very nervous about talking to MJ, even though he's loved her forever since they were kids, and it turns out that she's also loved him. And the thing that I liked is that he wanted to be there for her no matter what, like whether he was friend zoned, whether he was the actual boyfriend, um, things like that. She eventually comes around and decides to love him too. And like I guess where I'm going with this is that it was nice to see that she was basically the other main character in all three movies. Like he wasn't doing he wasn't saving the world from these random bad guys because he felt like it was the right thing to do. He more or less was saving the world because in addition to like they were the extra piece because um these bad guys in all three movies would go after Mary Jane and like Spider-Man was like, "Oh, all right, fine. Uh, like there are a couple scenes where he stopped bad guys from robbing things, and he was like, "Oh, all right, fine." But there was also a scene in, I believe, Spider-Man 2 where this guy's literally getting mugged, and like he realizes, like, look, I don't want to be Spider-Man. I just want to be with Mary Jane. And he's living, and he lets this guy get mugged. Like he could have literally turned around and gone and helped the guy, and he was like, "Nope, I'll just keep walking." But then when Mary Jane is in trouble, he's like turns into Spider-Man and he's like, "Hey, I'm here. Come and help me." And it's funny too because before he tells Mary Jane that he is actually Spider-Man, he has to play it like he's jealous of Spider-Man, aka himself, because she doesn't know. So she'll be like, because more basically, she's trying to say, look, I'm not into you right now because I like this other guy. And it turns out that and he's like, oh, really? Like Harry? And for a time she did like Harry, but then she's like, no, 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 someone else, someone else. And it turns out that the someone else is Spider-Man, which is him. And so he has to play it like, oh, Spider-Man, what a guy. He saves the world and he takes my girl. But then it turns out that like he is Spider-Man. So it like shocks her, but everybody out, but the audience is like, no, 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 this is good. This is good. In in the Amazing Spider-Man films, you never doubt when Spider-Man is once Andrew Garfield gets bit, you never doubt that Gwen Stacy is going to eventually figure it out. They go through a similar storyline of like she's always been his crush over the years, and like that's basically one of the only comparisons in that regard. I mean, all these movies did very, very well at the box office with an average of 784 million per movie, as the minimum, which is crazy. Uh, No Way Home actually is the highest grossing Spider-Man movie ever. That's the one where all three of them are in the movie. It's the most recent one that came out in 2021, where uh sorry, I'm just pulling this up right now. Spider-Man No Way Home, 1.89 billion, which is crazy. But again, it goes back to my point earlier about how I was saying that Tom Holland sort of went in with an advantage over the other two actors and that he was already cast as the Spider-Man who was going to be working with the Avengers. So, I mean, um, most of the people coming to watch that version of Spider-Man were Marvel Avenger fans. And so he was already getting like a big audience as is. The other guys were like, if you were a diehard nerd like myself who loved Spider-Man growing up and even present day, you love Tobey Maguire because you could relate to him. in that regard, and that um, it was different from the other Marvel movies at the time. It was completely different from what else was coming out at the time. I think Blade was loosely around then, The Matrix was around them, and yeah, so seeing that Tobey Maguire, uh, like the guy from Seabiscuit, is now Peter Parker. I mean, that made sense. And the other thing too was that he he apparently had like no interest in being anybody else. Whereas we've heard stories that like Andrew Garfield wanted to go in a different direction after Spider-Man 2. I think he was more in line with his Hacksaw Ridge character, where he wanted to play someone more historical versus a comic book character. Tom Holland, I mean, he's a great actor too, and this is Spider-Man has basically become his thing. But then in the aftermath of Spider-Man, he's been doing roles that are like completely different from Spider-Man. Like, so it makes you wonder to yourself, was he the right guy to be cast in that role too? I think he was. To be honest with you, I think he was. So, one thing I wanted to do, just as we almost want, just as we wind down a little bit from here, is throw out some alternative titles to uh Spider-Man, the Tom Holland version. So in Spider-Man 1 was Homecoming. Spider-Man 2 was Far From Home. Spider-Man 3 was No Way Home. I feel like Spider-Man 4 should be called Just Got Home. Then Spider-Man 5 could be No, I Gotta Leave My Home. And then Spider-Man 6 could be um I don't know, something home. My question is Spider-Man technically a homebody because they're so like home is definitely one of the main themes of all 8 movies. Uh, the Andrew Garfield version loves being at home. Uh, Tobey Maguire's version fights the urge. He goes through the point that everybody goes through with um life, where it's like, oh, I don't want to be home so much. Like, I want to be a cool guy, but I'm also a nerd, sort of thing. Like he fights that dilemma a lot, and you can see it his uh his feelings really come out of the third one, where he's crying at certain points, which people said brought things down. I disagree. It showed more raw emotion than I felt Andrew Garfield did. Um, in the Tom Holland version, you could tell that like he definitely wanted something more than the life that he and Marissa Tomei had, which is respectable, don't get me wrong. But I mean, his over ambition was a little too much for for me in a couple of those movies. But what do you guys say in terms of who the best Spider-Man is? Was it Toby? Was it Andrew? Was it Tom? Also, who makes the best um Mary Jane? Or female lead, I guess is the best way to ask that because um Mary Jane Mary Jane you enjoy because she basically is like um the she's the girl next door, but she's also like the hottest girl in the school. And so you're just like, that's the girl that you would love to have. As like a nerd in high school, speaking from experience, there was like plenty of attractive ladies at the high school that I went to, and I remember thinking like, oh, if I could get out of my shadow, not necessarily be a superhero, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that, but like if I could get out of my nervousness and like actually be able to talk to a girl at the time, uh, who knows? Like maybe I would have gone out with one of them or something like that. So, um, But then Gwen Stacy, it's like you know that Emma Stone knows that she is like the most attractive girl in the story. Like you know from her personality and all that that he's not thinking about anybody else in that. Um, they do play it off in the Spider-Man 3 with Tobey McGuire that maybe he doesn't like MJ anymore. Maybe he's going with Gwen Stacy instead, which is also interesting. Um, in the Far From Home, Homecoming, No Way Home, Go Home, Gotta Get Home, all the Home series. I actually kind of want there's rumors that Tom Holland's going to do another like three or four Spider-Man movies, which to be fair, I'm going to watch all of them. But I'm hoping Home is in each episode. I mean, in each movie's title. Uh, but what I'm trying to say there is that like Zendaya, who plays Mary Jane or MJ in the uh, Avengers universe version of Spider-Man, she she's she's like the outsider looking in too. Like she's definitely popular, but she's also um very intriguing is how I would say. So to me, I mean, I'm biased. I think of the world of Kirsten Dunst. I think she's awesome. I think she's amazing. Um, Zendaya and Tom Holland, I look at as too young because they're about like a decade, maybe like 12 years younger than me. So I'm kind of like, I don't know if I like them so much. And then actually, Emma Stone and Andrew Garfield are roughly around my age. And I don't know, they just weren't for me. They really weren't for me. But that's not to say they're not good actors. That's not to say not any of them are bad actors. I just didn't prefer them over anything else. So for me, I think the best Spider-Man was easily Tobey Maguire. The highest grossing Spider-Man in terms of money was definitely Tom Holland's Spider-Man. Um, and the best MJ, I don't know. I think it's Kristen Dunst, but a lot of people say Zendaya too, which is totally fine. Um, the other thing too is that I was thinking of including the animated versions in this review, but to be honest, watching 8 movies in 10 days was a bit of a mission. So watching like 12 would have been uh really tough to do. But I'm thinking in the future I may come back and do that. So that's it for this review. Let me know definitely who you like. Which Spider-Man do you like? Which MJ do you like? Which was Gwen Stacy the right person for them to cast in the Amazing Spider-Man, or should they have gone in the direction it had three Mary Janes for you to choose from? Let me know. And I'll see you later this week when I review a couple of the wrestling shows from this past week, including Greektown Wrestling, which came out on June 21st, uh, King of the Six, which is Super Kick's annual tournament to basically determines a lot of new challengers for their titles. I'm hoping that Taylor Rising eventually dethrones Jesse V for the Super Kicked World Heavyweight title. I'm kind of, as someone who watches the YouTube version, I haven't been to any of the live versions, so I don't know how he's coming across live. But over on the YouTubes, I'm kind of over him being the champ. He's been the champ for almost 2 years, and I think Taylor's time is now. She's an excellent wrestler. She's wrestled not only for Super Kick but for a variety of other promotions. But for the purpose of this little rant of her um being part of Super Kick's roster. She's the 420 champion, which is basically their version of like an intercontinental or US title. So I think the time's now for her to move on from that and challenge Jesse for the Super Kicked World Heavyweight title. So I'll have reviews of those two along with action wrestling from this past Friday as well. Um, up probably I want to say Wednesday or Thursday. And yeah, then I'll look for some other stuff. Also, I've been playing a lot more Xbox, so if anyone wants to get a hold of me there to play games or even record somehow there for the podcast while we play games, uh, my handle is this, Nattering with E, all one word. Nattering E. I think it's Nattering E, not with, just Nattering E. And yeah, there we go. So. Thank you as always for joining us. Also, be sure to if you're in Toronto the first weekend of July, be sure to reach out to Love Wrestling because they are doing the Money in the Drank DRANK pub crawl with the Wild Child Jody Threat, uh which is supposed to be like a precursor to watching Money in the Bank at both Scotiabank Arena, which is where the Leafs and Raptors play. It's hosting this year's Money in the Bank, and also the Rec Room, which is like a great arcade bar downtown. And so, if you want to meet some very lovely people, or even just come over and say hi to them for 5 seconds, that's uh, I would suggest the Rec Room for the latter part of just coming over and saying hi. I might actually do that. Go run down there and be like, "Hey, I'm Eric. I put over your stuff. I have your commercial on my podcast, blah blah blah." Uh but yeah, if you're into pub crawls, things like that, it's $65 Canadian. And I think there's a contest through Fightful where if you can find their hidden word, you can then buy the tickets for free. So, yeah, definitely check that out. Also, check out some of the other shows on the Visionary Global Media podcasts website. So we have Banned from Ringside, which you'll hear in the commercials ahead of this episode. So there's Banned from Ringside, uh, Good Cop, Bad Cop, Good Card, Bad Card, uh, the Phoenix Splash podcast, and of course our favorites, ROH Revelry with High Five Tom and Will Mercy Jr. And Tom's got another podcast called Midwestern Wrestling Roundup, where he basically is gonna he does all the Midwest wrestling indies and he covers everything. It's fantastic. So I'm hoping that my version of that will cover mostly Canadian wrestling, but also some of like the East Coast promotions that Tom does not cover. Tom's great, so definitely check out his stuff. Check out everybody on Visionary Global Media, and we'll be with you when we're with you. All right, stay cool in this crazy heat, and have a good one.